Good evening, and welcome back to the weird and the wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. And today, after much thought about what we might be able to do, I had a long discussion with the cat, who is currently ensconced upon my lap in proper form. And we decided that we needed something slightly different. And as a result, we went for a bit of a search around, and we came up with a location that I think might very well appeal. So if you are ready for another trip into the supernatural, then join me. Hi there to Stormtrooper. And we are going to do another examination of the supernatural and paranormal of yet another country in the world to see if we can find commonalities and things of interest. And today's destination is going to be Turkey, which I think is going to be a suitable spot to go for. Never give up. No, we never do give up. We can only get better and better as we go along. So we shall see what we can find and whether or not we enjoy what we find. And I hope that you join me and do the same. I have young Munchkins curled up on my lap. She always joins me for the evening because I think it's a chance for her to keep warm. The weather has been suitably freezing, which is quite unusual for this time of year, really. But nevertheless, her presence is good luck. Now, if we are going to go to Turkey, we are going to probably need to know a small amount about Turkey to keep us suitably in line with what we are talking about and why we are talking about it. And as I say, it is Turkey that we have gone to. And it's one of those countries that is particularly interesting. It is what they refer to as a transcontinental country that is partway in southeastern Europe and partway in southwestern Asia. And it is one of those places which not only is it geographically strange, but it has a number of interesting bits to it. So it has a high central plateau, coastal plains, and numerous mountain ranges, which include, of course, the Pontic and the Taurus Mountains. So it is bordered by the Black Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Aegean Sea. And it shares borders with Greece, Bulgaria, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Now, of course, with all of that going on, as you can very well imagine, we are going to be looking at quite a varied sort of culture, influences from quite a bit of different cultures that join together and have obviously affected the residents there. Hey, Melissa. Which I think is going to make for an interesting background. Now, I'm led to understand that the country these days is largely Muslim, but it has not always been so, and there used to be a large Anatolian Greek presence at one stage, but I do believe that war and such has changed things over the years that has led even large population movements, which has resulted in some interesting places and abandoned villages and such. And I think we will find some quite fertile ground for the paranormal and supernatural that we are looking for. So I think we are going to enjoy this. Muketwa, welcome. So let us start our journey off and see what we have in terms of the paranormal and supernatural. Now, in Turkish culture, there are quite a few supernatural entities, and it is one of those cultures where the telling of tales and stories is a valued thing. So, um, there are plenty of stories to go round, which means I think we shall find some good stuff. Now, according to the research I have done, um, they say that Turkish people do not uh, commonly believe in ghosts in quite the same way as is believed in Western cultures. They acknowledge supernatural beings, and indeed with also jinn. And of course, as we have seen in several of our lives, um, the jinn are one of our special categories of cryptids that we do seem to encounter very often. So that's going to be very interesting. But um, they have a number of sort of spiritual beings which you might consider to be ghost-like, and some maybe not so. Um, and there are also a number of very interesting um, towns that are, as I say, completely emptied, ghost towns for various reasons. And one interesting place, which I think uh, goes all the way back to the Byzantine era. I will have to double check my notes on that one, but what makes it really interesting is it's an entirely underground town with the most amazingly complex um, selection of air vents and tunnels and things that allow fresh air deep underground, um, which is quite surprising for a place entirely cut into the rock, which I think we should probably have a reasonable amount of history and interest to find something supernatural and paranormal in. Now, you might be wondering, if you have a look at my picture there behind me, that is a ghost town, and by which I mean it is a rather amazing town with some beautiful buildings and all that is completely empty. And there are reasons for it. It is, in fact, an Anatolian Greek town. Um, and there are no Anatolian Greeks there anymore. They are all gone. And the reasons are due to internal conflicts in Turkey that caused a large quantity of people simply to leave. The Anatolian Greeks just left. I believe there was almost an exchange of peoples as a number of Muslims left Greece and came into Turkey, and as a result, there are places that are just empty, which is sort of fascinating. I'm sure there's a lot more than uh, the little that I have encountered as to why for all of these things, but we shall see what we can find as we go along. Very briefly, we find that, yes, top of the list of things that you might expect in Turkey are indeed jinn. Um, we also have the Al-Karisi, which is a female entity, and it seems to be a bit of a nasty one. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but we shall find out. We have the Karabasan, which is linked to people being asleep. And what's interesting about this is we have versions of this in a number of other cultures, so perhaps there's something to that. We also have the Hortan or the Kormos, um, which is a kind of somewhere between a ghoul and a vampire, but we shall get to it. We have the Gulyabani and the Tipigos, which are particularly from the Dede Korkut stories, which are a kind of Turkish epic, which are said to be quite important. As I say, we have the abandoned village of Kayakoi. We have the Basilica Cistern, which is the underground place. Um, and there are all kinds of influences on what the Turks believe, and so on and so forth. So let us begin, as it were. Um, in Turkish mythology, they speak of a thing called kormos, which refers in a certain level or way to demons, ghosts, spirits, and more, but it also can denote mental illness, sleep paralysis, which is linked again to um, that strange creature. Um, so it has several meanings, shall we say, of what might be meant and what it can mean. So now that we've been joined by quite a lot of people, um, I'm just going to remind you all that you are absolutely welcome on the channel, and we love as many comments as we can get. Hey, Tafareen, we always enjoy hearing opinions, but remember, do be polite, because if you are not, we shall apply the boot. We are not here to judge anybody's opinions. We always like different opinions. You don't have to agree, but you do have to be polite about it. So as long as we can stick with that, we can proceed. So, kormos. Translated literally, it means does not see or blind. Um, so things that cannot necessarily be seen, and they're associated with tamag, the underworld, and they can be both benevolent, in which case they are considered somehow to be, would we say, angelic, or they can be malevolent, in which case they are considered to be demonic. Now, some of the kormos are considered to be ancestral spirits, either in their original form or transformed after death. Um, Evil or demonic kormos are believed to live, for the most part, in the underworld, um, and they are controlled by Erlik, which is kind of the Turkish version of a devil, if you can imagine that. So there we go. Some of the kormos are not really good or evil, um, but they roam the earth in a state of suffering. And I suppose that's the closest we will get to ghosts, really, in that um, regards. You got the Karabasan, which is the creature that attacks you while you're asleep, which may or may not be a ghost as such. You have the Gelin, which mostly means bride. It also refers to a type of female ghost in certain local legends, and is generally associated with tragedy, which of course we've encountered a great many times now. It is worth noting that the jinn that are mentioned are considered to be another race, just not human. They are not really considered to be spirits as such. but they do have certain supernatural abilities and more. So half and half, shall we call it? Um, Now, the haunted locations that we may have a look at, as I say, we have Kayakoi, which was abandoned during the population exchange between Turkey and Greece, is reportedly very haunted. Ani, which is a historical city, once the capital of the Armenian Bagratuni kingdom, which is said to be haunted as well. And there is also a place called Garip, which apparently is full of um, ghosts and more. So we shall see what we can find about all of these places insofar as we are able to. But we must also mention that um, being a largely Muslim country, exorcism is considered to be very useful for getting rid of evil spirits, and jinn, which they do say can also possess you in some cases. So, absolutely. And there are a number of amulets and things that are used to protect yourself from whatever might be out there. So, absolutely, we have a varied mix of things. Now, we are going to have a brief look at the history of um, Annie, which, from what I understand, um, in Armenian it has a slightly different name. In ancient Greek it was Anion. Um, it is a ruined medieval Armenian city now situated in Turkey's province of Kars, next to the closed border with Armenia. Between 961 and 1045, it was the capital of the Bagratid Armenian kingdom that covered much of present day Armenia and eastern Turkey, and it was known as the City of 1,001 Churches, um, which was a bit romanticized, but maybe 100 or so in real life. But nevertheless, it was considered to be one of the world's largest cities, and this will make you laugh just a little bit. It had almost 100,000 people at the height of its uh, strength. It's practically a village by these modern standards, but nevertheless, um, renowned for its splendor, it was sacked by the Mongols in 1236, had an awful earthquake in 1319, and um, after that it sort of went downhill rather hard and fast, um, which I suppose is quite sad. Um, it was supposed to be a very important place in its due time, but um, it, in 1064, a very large Seljuk army under Alp Arslan attacked Ani. After a siege of 25 days, they slaughtered the population. Now, of course, in terms of the paranormal and what have you, if you want ghosts, a serious slaughtering of a large number of people is absolutely the way to get them. Um, a Turkish historian, Sibd ibn al-Jawiz, uh, was quoted as saying, "The army entered the city, massacred its inhabitants, pillaged and burned it, leaving it in ruins and taking prisoners of those few that remained alive. The dead bodies were so many that they blocked the streets, and one could go nowhere without stepping on them. The number of prisoners was not less than 50,000 souls. I was determined, he says, to enter the city and see the destruction with my own eyes, and I tried to find a street where I would not have to stand on corpses to walk, but it was impossible. That's quite a serious slaughter. So, yeah, in modern times, of course, the place is basically abandoned and considered to be a World Heritage Site. Um, but it is currently basically little more than a ruin. You need for a long time to get official permission even to visit it. Um, Nowadays, you are allowed to visit it, but they say that it's one of those places that, in terms of hauntings, you can absolutely find something there. People have spoken of apparitions, of sounds and such, and more that have been heard around the massive sort of slaughters and violent history of this city, which was obviously something of a serious prize to anyone that could take it. Um, and many powerful nations did indeed try. Um, for its riches, I suppose. It left behind a lot of dead, and they say that very much so. Um, there remains the ghosts that wander the cities, uh, ancient streets, and the tumbled ruins. Much thanks for the likes there. Uh, John Bones Jones, another Bones. We always like a good Bones. So absolutely, it's a fascinating sort of a city, but they say that don't go after dark. The violence that remained soaked into the stones have held trapped the ghosts of the past, and there is much that walks there that possibly should not. So there you are, a good set of stories uh, to consider in that regard. Um, Moving along though, talking about Kayakoi, um, the city was lived in almost entirely by Anatolian Greeks until the Greek-Turkish War of 1919 to 1922. That swept through the region and caused destruction and havoc. And of course, as you can imagine, we once again have a war, and therefore sufficient dead people that died in fairly violent forms to give us very much the ghosts that we are seeking. Um, it was originally called Livisi, and when they were forced out during the war, they left their homes and belongings behind them. And after some discussion, I suppose, Greece and Turkey decide to implement a forced population exchange. Greeks in Turkey were forced out, and Turks and Muslims in Greece were forced the other way. It was an unprecedented upheaval. Refugees were ravaged on their way to their new homes. Many didn't make it, and those that did survive were absolutely destitute. Kayakov is one of those villages that they were forced out of. And it basically resulted in a lot of sad and quite tragic stories in both cultures, I should think. But in this specific village, it is said to be haunted by those who didn't make it or didn't manage to get out. Um, and among the ruined buildings, they say that you can sense the presence and the sorrow, and sometimes see shadows that lurk among the walls of those that could not get out, which is quite a tragic story in many ways, I think. Um, but it shows that how do they say in Fallout, war never changes, and this is in many ways quite true. But moving along, let's see what other frightening things to talk about we can find in Turkey. Now, in the folklore and mythology of Turkey, and indeed in the wider Turkic world, um, there are many legends, beliefs, and tales that span the different countries, and often these stories are passed down through generations and reflect a lot of uh, the nature of the people, of course, which is quite wonderful. But the first one up is the Basti, a nightmare spirit, and one of the most feared, they say, in Turkic mythology. It is a malevolent entity that is known specifically for nighttime visits that bring on bad dreams and nightmares. The term Basti is derived from the Turkic word for a press, and the reason for this, and if you are South African, you will absolutely recognize this, and I'm sure quite a few other countries have something similar. This is a spirit of some variety that is believed to sit on the chest of a sleeping person, causing them to start to suffocate. Thank you. Um, and of course, that is suitably terrifying in a great many ways in and of itself. But it's interesting in that the Turkey is by no means the only country to have exactly this kind of a thing as a creature. We have, I believe, you will know if you are South African that the tokolosh is known to do much the same, to sit on your chest and try to suffocate you. And there are plenty of other countries and cultures have very much the same kind of a spirit that um, will try to suffocate you in this manner. The Basti is not only a creature of nightmares, but also in the daily lives of those who believe in it. It is said that a Basti can ride horses at night, such that even though you have left your horse in the paddock safe and sound, um, in the morning you find it exhausted and drenched in sweat. And they say that the Basti has the power to take and use them. And it suggests, of course, that such a power, um, that it can affect not only the realm of sleep, but of course also the physical world as well. So it's quite a feared creature. In Turkish law, sometimes the Basti is also associated, just as the Toklosh is in South Africa, with witches who can transform into animals such as cats, dogs, horses, bees, and more. And when in a trance, they can send their spirits out in the form of these animals flying through the night or hovering over water. Dead Basti witches were believed to return as ghosts to continue to haunt and terrorize the living. So we have a creature, and of course we have witches. And I do believe once we have got through this first load of countries and cultures for the paranormal and supernatural, I do think that we ought at some stage to do one just on the witches of the world. I think that would be pretty amazing. Hey to DN Twins. Welcome back. It's good to see you again. Um, Now, the Basti is most infamous for its nighttime attacks in that it often targets women, and in these attacks, which are known as Karabasan, literally black pressure, the Basti is said to enter the room through the keyhole to sit on your chest, increasing the weight gradually until the victim awakes, terrified and unable to move. Um, Modern medical views on this is that this is obviously sleep paralysis, um, which may or may not be uh, accompanied by hallucinations, but, well, there are those who say not at all. Now, what does the Basti look like? Different regions have their own versions. Sorry, my computer is being very irritating here, and despite the fact that it is well plugged in and all the rest of it, it seems to be struggling to gain power, which is going to irritate me in a great many ways. However, I think we have fixed it. We shall hope. Um, but nevertheless, as we go along, yes, it says it's back on. Right, so the first of all is the albasti, a tall, white-skinned, naked female that is particularly evil. Then you have the karabasti, which is a nightmare demon that only approaches in your darkest nightmares. You have the kulbasti, a hairy and smelly creature that sleeps in a grave during the day and roams at night. And interestingly enough, um, that description is very much like the South African Tokolos right there. And then you have the saribasti, a woman dressed in yellow, um, which, as a result of its actions, also causes epilepsy. Um, why there are different ones, we're not sure. Now, of course, the Basti's key abilities include that of shape shifting, and that's how it gets around. And some say that the shape shifting abilities of the Basti is reminiscent of the werewolf lore, though I must admit I would doubt that myself, as there are quite strong differences between the two, I think. But yeah, give your opinion on that, give some comments on that. Um, not too sure. Now, to protect against this creature, we find yet another commonality, which I think is very interesting. As we have seen in a number of other cultures and countries, the way to deal with these sorts of things is to use cold iron. Um, and that is exactly how you deal with a basti. An iron bladed knife under the pillow, which I think might be a bit dangerous, or iron objects in or around the bed, uh, which will ward off evil spirits. Steel, though, is supposed to be particularly potent against the basti, which is not common um, in other countries who say that no, steel doesn't work. Here they say it is actually more potent. So there you are. Um, we shall we shall have to see. Now the next one is the Gelin, the ghost bride, which may or may not uh, be familiar to some of you. They are associated with tales of tragic love and betrayal, often seen in slum areas, wandering aimlessly, searching for the lover who abandoned her or for the life she was denied. Now, this sounds very, very strongly like the traditional white lady. Hey, thanks, Vortex. We always like likes. And a rose as well from John Bone Jones. What a hero. Much thanks there. Um, so you will find much in common with the lady in white or La Rona in the South American countries. Um, so the Gelen is typically depicted as a young woman dressed in her wedding gown, her face veiled as she roams the earth seeking justice and revenge. Her appearance is considered a particularly bad omen, especially for the family she haunts, and in some versions, she's seen as a harbinger of death, much like the Banshee. Now, if she appears to a family, someone in that family will soon die. Now, the only difference between La Llorona and the Gelen is that La Llorona obviously is almost always found around water. Why, I don't know, but this one is not. But in all other aspects, it looks and acts basically the same. Um, so, very much tragedy and loss of honor and all the rest of it, themes of revenge and more. And it is said that anyone that believes that they have become haunted by a Gelen will go to great lengths to appease the spirit, offering prayers and rituals to help her find peace. And it underscores particularly a deep connection that the Turks have between the living and the dead, and where ancestors are believed to have a continuing influence. And of course, we have found that this is something that anybody else that has a reverence for the ancestors will absolutely understand. Now we're going to move on to a slightly more awful creature, which I think um, we may find some interesting points on. Some would call this the Turkish version of a vampire. I'm not entirely certain that works. Um, we shall see. But the Hortdan, also known as the Hortlak, and the Zordzan is quite a fearsome creature. It is undead, similar to a vampire, but they seem more ghoul like from the description. They rise from their graves to torment the living and drain their vitality, um, which they say is something that shows the Turkish view of the afterlife uh, and the fact that the boundary between life and death is somewhat unstable. The word hurtdan is related to the Turkish word hortlamak, which means to get out, and it sort of implies that you have a reanimated corpse that has got out of the grave. They are not mindless zombies, so not really like a ghoul or zombie in that respect. And they do possess a range of supernatural abilities, including shape shifting, invisibility, and the ability to drain the life force of their victims. They are, like vampires, driven by a insatiable hunger for human blood, but where they are very different from the European vampire is that they are monstrous and terrifying with no redeeming qualities at all. So, all of you Twilight fans, um, sorry, this is not one for you. There are various different variations on it, of course, within the different Turkic cultures. Um, so the Hortlak is more zombie-like, a less intelligent version of what it might be, and it is more one like a ghoul that it wants to eat flesh. The Zort Dan is much closer to the Western version of a vampire which wants the blood particularly. That's Azerbaijani. Then you have the Hortdan in Tuvan tradition, which is more like a poltergeist, an evil entity that haunts and torments the living. It is less physical. So then you also have the Kormos, which includes other varieties of spirit that are similar but not quite the same as the Hortdan. Um, so there's quite a few different versions thereof. Now, many of these souls of the dead are associated in some way with blindness, and it seems to imply that ghosts or the souls of the dead, particularly those that die in tragic or unnatural circumstances such as suicide and uh, accidents, are blind. They often cannot see at all. But it may also refer to the fact that they are unable to see their way to the afterlife and they are therefore trapped here, which also is a fascinating consideration in and of itself. So, in Turkic uh, mythology, there are three kinds of supernatural thing. You have the Arug, which are angelic koromos who protect and help humans. These spirits are under the command of Ulgin, a benevolent deity in Turkish mythology, and are guardians of the balance between good and evil, just like angels, I suppose. Then you have the Kaman, also known as the Yaman. They are demonic spirits that serve Erlik, the lord of the underworld. These spirits are malevolent and are known to abduct and torture humans. They are associated with illness, including mental illness and other forms of suffering. You also have the Gal, and these are the ones which are neither good nor evil, but wander along searching for peace. So they are associated particularly with specific times of day, mostly sunset and sunrise, which is quite interesting because in Western views of things, the dangerous times are the darkest parts of night and midnight and such, but not if you're Turkish. They say that the most dangerous parts are those times where the veil between the worlds are thin, sunrise and sunset. And being awake during these times can attract the attention of a spirit, leading to illness or misfortune. Um, so, being out at night is less of a problem. Being out in the day is fine, but not too early in the morning. I've got to admit, I support that heartily, in that I don't think getting up in the morning is a good idea. You have to wait for a bit later. But nevertheless, some very interesting things covered there. Now, just quickly, it might be worthy of point that there are a hell of a lot of different um, spirits and things. And as we mentioned, Olgin controls the good ones. He is basically in the older mythologies of Turkey the creator deity. Um, it sort of means magnificent. Um, and he fits to what most of us would consider as the main god, um, the 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 chap in charge, as it were, that is the good one, as compared to Erlik, who is the chap in charge, who is the bad one. Um, so Erlik, or Erlik Khan, is the god of death and the underworld, sometimes referred to the Lord of Tamag, which is their version of hell. Um, so the underworld, if you will, and he's the chap that brings death, plague, evil spirits, torment to human, and will take their souls where he can. So not the good guy, in other words. So you do have a dualism, as it were, um, within the understanding of how these things go, if you will. Um, and of course, we have a whole lot of different spirits that are not ghosts, but which are considered to be suitably evil. You have the Yor, which are evil that go. Mostly they live in the underworld, but their aim is to get into this one and cause as much trouble as possible. Then we have the Alban, which are souls of those who have committed suicide. They look like humans, but they have long hair and long claws and inverted eyes and feet, and they are quite nasty, it seems, and quite sad because obviously they did a terrible thing by committing suicide. The Kaik are the souls of the damned, and they can change forms. Their bloody hands, dry eyes, and deadly talk are exceedingly dangerous, and they are particularly evil. The Ozer, or Ozor, are the ancestor ghosts, and they're the ones that will come and sort things out for you and help out when you are in trouble from the other and more dangerous type of spirits. Now, as we go along, we need to talk about some places, of course. And the first one is Bodrum Castle, a medieval castle built by, interestingly enough, the Knights of St. John. Um, and it is said to be haunted by the spirits of those who died during its construction and by the soldiers who fought in battles there. Now, this is something which is going back to the Crusades. Um, that's what you're really talking about. The Knights of St. John were one of the great Crusader groups that went out to fight in the Crusades, and absolutely, again, wars of all kinds. So we are absolutely talking about a place where we can expect ghosts, and building castles and things back in the day was a terribly dangerous job. I'm just throwing it out there. And often people died during the construction, and in some cases it was considered to be a good thing to ensure the strength of the building, as it were, to add a little sacrifice to the building of things. I imagine the Knights of St. John wouldn't have done that necessarily, but yeah, people died during the construction of building all the time. And of course, after that, as it was a castle, plenty of soldiers. And it is said, in fact, that you can still see shadows and hear noises in the castle because of the spirits that are there. Then you have Kankaya Mansion in Ankara, the official residence of the president of Turkey, but it is said to be haunted by the ghost of a former president. Makes you wonder what happened to that guy. And the staff have reported very strange occurrences, objects moving, and strange sounds. I wonder what it would be like to be forced to live in a place where your predecessor in the job died and is still there. That certainly sounds like a suitably creepy version of a thing. Uh, Seyaneki, welcome. Good to see you. The next interesting place is the Maiden's Tower in Istanbul. The iconic tower has various legends surrounding it, including tales of a princess who was locked away, which has led to ghostly sightings, eerie sounds, and more reported by visitors. Now, of course, as we know, Istanbul was for a long time Istanbul, and then when it was conquered, became Constantinople, and more recently regained its original name of Istanbul. But it has a very, very long history, and absolutely there have been uh, a great many interesting things that have occurred in Istanbul. So the idea of a proper princess tower with um, a ghostly princess in it is practically required for such an old city. Now, the next place, of course, will be very familiar. If you've been following the live, if you want ghosts, this is one such place you will get them, and that is the prison. In this case, the prison of Bursa. And it was once quite a notorious prison. It was said that to go there was definitely not something that you would enjoy by any manner or form, and the inmates, as bad as they were, suffered terribly. You absolutely learnt the meaning of don't do it while you were there, and many of them never left. They died there, as you can imagine. And it is said that visitors have heard noises, uh, felt feelings of unease and illness, been convinced that been uh, they are being watched, and apparitions and shadows and more. So, yes, very much in line with a great many other prisons we have encountered around the world. So, no surprise at all there. Hey, Matteo. We also have Rumeli Fortress, also in Istanbul, which was built in the 15th century, and it has a very dark history. And at night, it is strongly said to be careful because ghostly figures are seen and very strange things occur. I can't quite tell you what the strange things are. I think we must try and find out. But it's absolutely said to be truly haunted and the sort of place you have to be very careful um, if you ever do go there. Let's see if we can give a little clarity thereon. I will tell you it's quite a pretty fortress, and of course it is um, along the river, which is really quite nice. Um, it is a medieval Ottoman fortress from the Ottoman Empire uh, on the hills on the European banks of the Bosphorus. The fortress uh, obviously is quite an important one and has been for quite a long time um, through history, um, simply because of uh, its place and more. It was built to actually control ships passing through the Bosphorus um, before the conquest of Istanbul, and it was built around 1452. which I think is quite an interesting sort of um, history in that regards. Just pulling up quickly a few extra bits to see if we can um, give you some clarity there. It's been used over the centuries, and of course, it's had quite a few centuries for a number of different reasons. Obviously, originally it was a fort. It was also used as a prison, which right there you can imagine will add to um, what you might expect. But they say that strange sounds from the past and ghosts have been said to have been seen, but it doesn't seem they can give us specifics, alas, which I would have much preferred. I would like to have seen a few more uh, ideas and things in that regard that might give us something to talk about. Now, the next interesting um, place to go to is the Topkapi Palace. There we go. I said it right. I'm proud of me. Hey there to all of you who've just joined in. It's always good to have people here. Remember, like, subscribe, join in, send lots of comments because we love comments uh, and more. Now, this is currently one of Turkey's largest museums and one of the biggest tourist attractions. But amongst other things, many visitors have reported strange ghostly apparitions. This palace, and it was originally a palace, has a great collection of ancient idols and grand architecture. Now, we know from many of the places that we have been to around the world, it seems that ghosts like to attach themselves to specific objects. And if you bring them all together, that can cause all kinds of supernatural stuff. So, right there, we have another example of a haunted museum. Um, it is nevertheless, of course, quite a suitable place to visit um, in that regard, but you might get more than you bargained for. Now, the next interesting place is Bakirpasa Mansion, which is an old mansion in Turkey that is considered by many locals to be haunted. It has uh, a particularly hair-raising appearance at night time because the building is very old and partly damaged. And if you see it on a foggy night, it fits exactly to the archetypal ghost house or haunted mansion. So the fact that there are any stories about it um, is hardly surprising. Local people, however, say um, that the building once simply disappeared for an entire day, and nobody quite knew what happened to it. And if you want to experience a ghost, they say go there on a foggy night after 11 p.m. and you're almost guaranteed to 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 come across something. Now, the next interesting spot is far better built and very much in use, and that is the Simil Mola Mansion. And it's a very pretty building, I will grant you, not like many of the old and damaged ones we have looked at thus far. Um, but a lot of people have claimed to see ghosts around the building. Um, it has, of course, been restored, though it said that even its restoration was delayed several times because the workers refused to go there because a ghost was roaming the building and they were afraid of it. During the restoration, one of the workers lost his speak entirely because he saw one of the ghosts walking around. Um, Eventually, however, the mansion has been fully restored, but they say the ghosts nevertheless remain. So make of that what you will. The next one we've got is just known as the Haunted Mansion, and it is also a mostly damaged one. It was built in 1911 with red bricks and big glass stainless windows on the European shore. Um, the popular name of the mansion is Pirili Kosk, which literally means the Haunted Mansion. Um, the construction of this place remains partially unfinished for a very long time because, again, um, workers kept getting scared out by ghosts. Uh, there are those who even identified a specific ghost, the late wife of Ottoman Pasha Yusuf Zia. And they say that at times you will hear piano playing in the background, which I think is particularly uh, cool. Now, the last place I want to talk about is Sevahir Bedesten, and that is the Grand Bazaar. I mean, come on, you cannot talk about a a haunted place in Turkey without having a haunted bazaar. I mean, right there, that's practically a necessity. It's still used as a shopping mall today, but originally it was one of the oldest and largest of markets in the world, which sort of says it all. Uh, it might be considered to be an unusual place for a haunting, but nevertheless, it is.
Yo, so
Hey there, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm good.
Ah,
Do you remember me?
I do indeed. I'm glad you could join us again. Are you in good health, sir?
Yeah.
And surviving the cold?
Nah, I'm in bed right now because I'm so cold.
Yeah, I know this weather is not happy. But as
What are
we
you
are,
doing?
I'm up at my computer, but today's mission is in Turkey. What do you know about Turkey?
That you can eat turkey on Thanksgiving?
Well, today we are talking more about the country than the bird. I wonder now, actually, if there's a connection between the name of the bird and the country. I don't actually know. Huh. How about that? But we are talking about one of the oldest shopping markets in the entire world, which is in Turkey, in Istanbul, I believe. Um, but what makes it really cool is somewhere in the market, there is a portal to another world. And if you walk down
That's
just,
fake.
sorry about that, say that again.
That's fake. You can't like go into another world.
Can you not? Why do you think not? Do you not
Cause
believe in other worlds?
I nah. I don't.
Well, I was reading a very interesting textbook the other day. Yes, I read strange books. This was on quantum mechanics. Um, I don't know if you've ever read the book Schrodinger's Kittens. I'm pretty certain that if you haven't, you should not be blamed. But you know who Schrodinger was?
Nah.
Okay, have you heard of Schrodinger's cat?
Yeah.
Okay, Schrodinger's cat was quite literally an exercise that Schrodinger himself developed trying to explain the concept of uh, something both being and not being at the same time until it's observed. Observation is apparently important in quantum physics. And there are a lot of different things that have become a spin off in science, genuine science, I'm talking now, as a result of quantum physics. And one of them is that originally we kind of believed that there are four dimensions. So, four dimensions are time, up, down, and sort of forwards and backwards, if that makes sense. So, you've got your directional and your temporal, and that makes up the four dimensions of the world. However, in modern quantum physics, they say there are many, many different dimensions, and we can only actually see or interact with the four we know. So maybe there are more places out there. We don't know. But I must admit you have a very strong point there. But nevertheless, it is said that you are in this market, there is a way through to another place. However, along with that particular story, um, because it is as old as it really, really is, um, many things in history have happened there, and there are ghosts that haunt the market at night, which is pretty cool. Now, the next place, which I think you will like, because this is an absolutely genuine place, it really exists, and that is Derinkuyu in Cappadocia, which is in Turkey. Now, we are all familiar with the idea of a city on the ground, right? Well, this one has been cut down underground, and I'm going to put up a map to it for you just to see how big it really is. And apparently, it was big enough to accompany up to 20,000 people who did genuinely live in there. So let me see if I can quickly pop up a picture for you to see, because it really is worth looking at. This is a genuine place. You can absolutely genuinely visit this place. I don't know how much it might cost to get in or whatever, but so there behind me is a map underground with all the different chambers, and apparently it's so well made. There's fresh air throughout. However, it's also very old and was used as a place to hide from wars and all the rest of it. And it is said to be haunted as well. And if you walk down the shadowy halls of Derinkuyu, there is quite possible you will see more shadows than there are people to cast them. It is said that um, there are strange shapes that pass by, and there are even, apparently, if you go and search hard enough, photos and videos of apparitions that appear down there in the underground passageways. But I got to be honest with you, I don't know about you, but I'm a touch claustrophobic, and I'm not going down there. As big and amazing as it is. Would you visit? No? Maybe I don't blame you. As we are going along, okay, we have dealt with all of those ones. Let's talk about some more modern stories that people have said. Now, as I pointed out, um, ghosts, spirits, demons, and more are not really separated greatly in Turkish culture. So there is a sort of a crossover and a mix. And this is a story of a actual Turkish resident, um, who says,
Quick question.
yes,
How old are you?
how old am I? I am
Yeah.
over 50. Why do you
Actually.
ask? Yes.
Well, isn't that a bit weird? Like you're talking to like a 14-year-old?
There's Nate that's joined us. What's Unc doing?
Oh, let him in the live.
Yeah, no, he's welcome to join if he would like. Let's see if he will join.
Wait, wait. Isn't that pedophile? You're like 50 years old and you're talking to me.
You joined my live to talk about ghosts.
Yeah, but you let me in.
Well, I don't know how old you are.
I'm 14.
Okay, that's cool.
And do you find that cool?
I don't worry about people's age. I'm purely doing
Yo,
a.
what's up, Unc?
How's it, Nate? Welcome back.
Oh, strange bones. Oh, strange bones.
Yes,
Can I see your muscles? Like your
I
bones?
I am not the muscular type, I am afraid, so that would be very difficult to do.
Do you know what a Ouija is?
I do.
Like the chip.
Okay, so we are talking about a current,
Ah,
more modern story.
get
Okay.
off me! Get off me! Ah, get off me! Oh, my bad, there was a snail.
Okay, but
Alright, go
carrying
back to
on,
the point, bye.
we are talking about a story that is told by a resident of Turkey, and we are talking about the paranormal and supernatural as we know. Um, Nate, you're being asked by Josh what you're doing joining the live. Do you know Josh?
No.
Uh, there you go. So, so the person says, I personally have never believed in anything like the supernatural or black magic or what anything like that. But since
Oh, yeah. Wait, I have a question.
yes, ask.
Um, do you have bones? Like, are your bones strange?
Oh, you know, ask my doctor strange bones. You know what he said? I had strange bones, so I have to cut them off. I have no more bones.
Well, my name is Bones,
Oh,
and
my nickname's Bones. That's what they call me at
so
school.
that's why I called the channel what it is.
Strange bones. You know what they call
Yes,
me at school? They call me Basher.
fair enough.
Is it?
But yes, we are moving on with the story, okay? So
Wait, why'd you meet me? That wasn't me.
that's the moderator.
Oh, man, fuck that nigga.
Ah, 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 ah.
Alright,
No.
fine. Sorry, I was it. My bad, my bad. I'm sorry.
Sorry, that is a
Yeah, sorry.
disconnect. Disconnect straight off. Thank you to the moderator for that, but we are not going to allow that on the channel at all. Definitely not permitted. Um, So yes, moving along with the story. So according to this person, um, they are not believers in any such things at all.
Yo,
Hello,
my
welcome,
bad, my
welcome.
bad. Nah, it was my brother that swore. My bad.
So the moderator is managing with great skill and ability for us. So thank you to you.
Yo, what's up?
That's uh,
I'm back. Why'd you
okay.
kick me?
We don't speak such things if they
I didn't swear.
go against what we allow. Uh, Kayan is doing his job and he is doing it very well, and I have to stand by that. So, okay, so moving along again, guys. Not too much interruptions on the stories. We can talk about other things at other times, but not when we have got a topic to cover. So, a couple of weeks back, according to the story, um, her cousin went to live with her boyfriend, went with her boyfriend to her sister's house for her birthday. In fact, her boyfriend took the cake, and uh, things were going very, very well, and everything is um, all happy. And in fact, her boyfriend, or cousin's boyfriend, uh, and her cousin were planning on getting married. And it was great, everything's wonderful. And the next morning, suddenly and for no reason, he completely broke up with her, said he didn't love her anymore. That was it. And of course, as you can imagine, the cousin is devastated. Um, 1 minute, everything is great, and the next thing you know, suddenly it's not. Um, you have
Oh
to
my
wonder
god.
why.
Hello.
Hello.
Strange Bones, what's up?
Hi, what's up?
Good, good, good. So
Oh,
they then started to wonder, why this sudden change of heart from
Wait, can I
everything.
ask a question,
You
please?
can ask one question. Go ahead.
Why is the screen black?
Why is my screen black? My screen is
Yes.
not black. It has got me in it.
oh, it's James Burns.
Yes.
Strange Bones, it must be pretty dark then.
No,
Because I can't see you.
I
James
don't
Burns
know
on
why
Washington
you
Martin.
can't see it because I can see it perfectly. Okay, so
Oh,
they
it's
are.
James Burns. Are you proud of me?
I am carrying on. So as they go along, they think, why would suddenly from full on we're going to get married, everything's perfect to the I don't love you at all, cheers, goodbye, and off they go. And they found strange marks around the house doors. Some kind of potion or some such has been wiped around the doors. They cleaned it off and did do a short prayer, but something just didn't work. Now,
Oh, strange Burns.
along with this, okay, guys, we will ask Kian to cut off the microphones if people are going to just make noises. Everybody in the house immediately started to be getting sick, which is quite strange, and you would wonder why this is. So uh, they said that this is odd, and even a other family member who wasn't even there suddenly became very sick and had terrible headaches. Then they found a folded piece of paper with something inside that had been pushed under the door into the house. Now, in Turkey, anything from a pig is considered bad. As you know, in Islam, um, pork is considered something you are not allowed to touch. It's considered unclean. And they say the hairs in this amulet or whatever were definitely pig hairs. So obviously somebody was doing something to particularly um, get at the family. So now they obviously got quite upset with this sudden bad luck, sudden upset, and all the rest of it. And the only time that they were able to finally get the headaches to stop happening was after they went away from the house in question and were prayed on by a priest. So it seems that now what exactly is going on? So they got a priest in to make special prayers at the house, to open all the doors and windows to expel the evil and so on and so forth. Um, but they say that no matter what they have done thus far, still their luck seems to be going down and getting worse. They keep getting sick, and suddenly then, um, after this occurred, the sister died at the age of 33. The father died a year later at the age of 56. The uncle and the aunt died at the age of 60s and 40, respectively. Um, and they are starting to get a bit scared. And in fact, at the end of this story, they point out that they still haven't managed to solve this problem. So you start to wonder what on earth is going on and what might be able to be done about it. So I don't know. What do you think of that? Thank you to NRL Forfeit. Welcome, welcome. How are you doing?
Hello, hello.
So what do you think? Was this family cursed by some kind of spirit or creature?
Wait, Strange Bones, your camera's not working, it's not black.
I don't know why everyone's saying that, because mine seems to be working just fine. Maybe certain things got damaged on your side, but yeah, I'm with you, Kian. But yeah, okay, so moving on to the next story that we have, and again, this is a modern story rather than one of the older ones. And she speaks about a childhood friend that they are no longer in touch with for whatever reason, that often used to come over, and they would do things that young girls do, make prank calls, taking countless pictures, being young girls, as you can imagine, which is entirely unsurprising. But years later, they grew up. This girl went to university, kind of lost touch with the childhood friends. Much thanks for the likes there. Um, and one day when she was back in her home city, she saw this girl's cousin in the hairdresser and thought, oh, well, go and say hello. And this cousin said, no, she's not very well. She's fainting a lot and having all kinds of attacks. And this person thought, oh, is she? She's in need of medical help. But uh, her friend's cousin said, no, no, she's been to doctors, psychologists, and everything. There's no cure whatsoever. But what makes things weirder is that when she starts having these attacks of sickness, um, she starts to predict things that will happen, and her voice changes. Now, this girl apparently was known for her curiosity about psychic abilities, and that she had tried on more than one occasion to communicate with ghosts or summon them. And according to this cousin of hers, during one of these things that she tried, she was then possessed by some kind of a ghost. Um, Now, she says that one day they were at a get together with friends in her house, and Susan was not, this friend was not invited in particular. Then all of a sudden, this Susan called and said she knows there's a party and she's coming too. Now, Susan arrives and is with one of the people at the party and turns around abruptly and says to her, did you know that your mother is cheating on your father? And of course, everyone's like, yeah, crap, no real things like that at all. However, this turns out not only to have been right, but only to have started after this was said. Now, a bit after this, this friend, Susan, came to visit her, but was a very, very scary and different person now. She'd always been a very fun-loving and talkative sort of a person, but now she was incredibly quiet. She walked into the house and after a few minutes simply said, "Somebody has suffered here so much." Now, as we know from a previous story that the same person, which I didn't actually explain just yet, uh, this person believes their house is haunted, but never told anybody because they didn't want to upset people or anything like that. But nevertheless, it seems that even though she's never said anybody about any of this to anybody, this Susan person knew immediately. So she thought, now this is now curious. So she wants to test this Susan. Now, day before, her mother had an argument with a neighbor, and she stopped talking to said person, and there's no way anybody would have known except her mother and the neighbor, really. And given that this Susan character lived across town, there's no way she could have known. But she said to them, "So who did my mum have an argument with?" And she immediately knew that it was a test, and then looked at her, turned away, and whispered to somebody that wasn't there, looked back, pointed over at the correct neighbor's house, and said, "Your neighbor there." Now, since then, she explained, there are two ghosts that haunt her. Initially, they were bothering her, so she carries a talisman, and now they have made peace, and she lives with the possession that she called in on her own self for whatever reason. So I don't know about that. Uh, Quite an interesting thing there. Norfates. Oh, I see it's being handled. Don't worry about that then. All good. Kaon's sorting it out. But good stuff. So, yeah, it seems that some people can invite possession in by literally doing things. And that's the theme we have found in a number of other countries and places as well. In one of our previous lives, somebody asked about the Ouija board. Is it dangerous? Should you ever do anything with a Ouija board? And my response to that remains the same. It's one of those things which I think very much in the hands of an expert might be a useful thing. But certainly it is almost never something that is used by an expert. And I think used wrong, it can absolutely go south very, very fast. And in fact, our next story for you is entirely about a Ouija board. Now, there are many customs in Turkey in order to talk to ghosts and or jinn, such as they are. And there are a great many professionals who will conduct practice sessions for such things. But now, in this particular story, it was the person's mother and her friends that found out how to do it. They were teenagers at the time when they wanted to do it. And this is exactly what I was saying. It is never the professionals that use these devices. And I suppose in many ways you can consider it much like a firearm. In the hands of an expert, it's a very useful tool. And in the hands of an idiot, it is seriously dangerous. So they made themselves an impromptu Ouija board with letters on a piece of paper and a upside down coffee cup, and they started asking questions. Only things got a bit creepy when the cup seemed to start to move on its own. Their mother asked the ghost who she would marry, and a name was given, and they never thought about it. But as it turns out, many years later, her mother did indeed marry her father, who had exact name. Um, so the mother realized this and was a bit worried and told the story to her grandmother. And after a while, um, the story got around, and somebody came then to her mom and said, "Listen, I need a bit of help with summoning somebody. Can we do this? My daughter was lost for over a year. No one can find her, and we're hoping a ghost can at least tell them whether or not the daughter is alive or dead." So their mother, possibly unwisely, agreed to help, and they asked the ghost, or whatever it was, that said, the girl is very much alive and escaped from the house to get married to a guy and lives in a small village where she's married with kids. They said they didn't believe this. She was too young to see anyone and she was always home. And the ghost replied, that's exactly why she decided to leave the house. So they got angry and didn't believe it. But then, sometimes later, the girl was indeed found, very much alive, and married with kids in a little village, um, just like the ghost said. Now, it seemed that this girl's mom got suitably freaked by the fact that this was too accurate, and therefore never did it again. But here is the upshot of the story. The ghost, by and large, in this story was helpful. But are they always so? There are absolutely many cases where people have done summonings, and it seems they have not got who or what they thought. And something more happened as a result that caused a lot more bad luck, trouble, and in some occasions even death as a result. So I put it to you, send a comment if you will. Is it possible that the use of these things can be good? Or are we just inviting in a lot of trouble? Because now here's the thing. I made the analogy of a firearm, which I think is a very good one, but I can find very easily a um, a professional to train me in the use of a firearm, and therefore can become a professional. But are there really any people out there who are proper professionals in the use of, say, a Ouija board who could teach you to use it correctly? I'm not certain whether or not that might be the case, and as a result, it seems that the only people that ever ending up using them are people who are not qualified, and it might cause a lot more damage than you might think. So, a difficult sort of a question. Now, another story we came across, which is quite modern, such as it is, there is a story of this person. We will, I don't know, call them Bob for want of a better thing. They moved into what they call a family summer house when this person, Bob, was 2. The house is 65 years old now, and it was originally only meant to be a holiday home, but their family was not doing great and they managed to get it fairly cheap. So they moved in to this place and built it up a bit as a permanent home. Um, when they were repairing the house for the moving in, they dug up part of the foundations, and there were all kinds of stones or underneath that the house was built on. So it was pretty good. It was nicely built. There was a well in the garden. It's a very pretty house, big garden. So a nice house for a kid to go and grow up in. Uh, but they say that the problem with the garden is that there's a weird sort of a vibe. And they remember when they were around 4, they used to hear someone calling their name, and they would go and search for the voice in the garden, but never seemed to find who was calling them. Their mother also said that while they were a kid, they would sometimes use chalk and write on the walls, as kids do. But it was okay. It was outside in a place that didn't matter. But many of the things written looked like they were written in the Greek alphabet. And why would a child have learnt a Greek alphabet? However, along with this, they recall times in the house where they'd be sitting all alone, well, the family together in a room, and you would hear someone knocking on the walls and tables to make noise. And one time when this became very loud, they were actually sleeping at the time, and their mother woke up and realized there was a problem with the furnace. And had the knocking and banging not woken them, they would have actually died of carbon monoxide poisoning. So it appears that there was a ghost in the house that was looking after them. Now, they were still in the house for many years, and by the time Bob, I don't even know if they're male or female, but there you go, was around 14, they were sitting in the living room with their brother, who was asleep on the couch. It was around 2 a.m., and they just couldn't sleep, so they were sitting up reading. They felt they were being watched, and they heard someone whispering that they should go to bed. And they thought it was their brother playing a trick, and they looked around, but nothing, so whatever, didn't take it seriously. Then there was a sudden strong wind blowing through the windows, and the curtains were flying up. Only the problem was that it wasn't a windy night. It was only the windows on that side in that room, and the windows were shut. So they obviously were like, bugger this for a game of soldiers. And they went to bed. So a couple of hours later, they're falling asleep, and the brother, who had been asleep in the room and obviously had stayed there asleep on the couch, woke up with a very loud scream. And he said that there's somebody in the house. There's someone in the house. I saw a woman walking through the room. And at first, he had thought it was this person's sister going through to the kitchen, except their sister had short curly hair and this woman had long straight hair. Now they searched the place, of course, and there was nobody there, and all right, whatever. Nothing you can do. The house is locked up and there's nobody in it but us. What can you do? So about a year later, their mom and dad were in the living room. They heard someone knocking on the door, and they both heard this person, Bob's sister, saying, "Mom, open, it's me." So their mother opened the door, and both of them said that there was nobody there. They could both see. So mom and dad both saw this. Much later, the sister came home and said, "No, we've been out with my friends the whole evening." Now that's very odd. So they didn't quite know what the story was there. And then a few days on from that, Bob had a strange dream of a woman, and he said that there was a woman in a light pink dress floating in the garden. She smiled at me and asked if I want to see where the treasure is. So I said, well, yes, of course. And she took me to a part of the garden. I remember they're dreaming this, okay? Um, and it looked as though they were seeing the garden in some older time. There were none of the trees that they had planted. There was a mill nearby. And she had me locate the spot, and I dug down. So then they woke up, okay? And it's a dream. So what? No problems. So the next morning when they woke up, he was chatting with his brother, and he describes the dream and the woman to the brother, who, remember, had seen a woman walk through the house, who says, no, that's exactly the same woman that I saw. So now, many people who have visited say they've seen shadows passing uh, by the windows. Things often got moved and taken or lost and found somewhere else entirely. Once they remember they had put their travel card on a console that they had and left it there. They were seen doing it. Then they went to do. Obviously, it is a girl because they went to do their makeup, but it just vanished. And when they went to finally found it, it was lying on the ground in front of the door to their room, and there's no way you wouldn't see it being there before. We would wake up, they say, to knocks on the window and the sound of somebody tapping. Eventually, they sold the place 22 years later. Um, and when they told a friend about the whole story, um, the friend wanted to go and see this, and according to them, he was something of a psychic, and he said he sensed her name was Raquel, and she was a church worker from Croatia, and she helped orphans, um, and she had been buried near the mill that used to be there before this person even moved in, and she he said to her, now he hadn't told the whole story, remember the treasure, because um, there was one particular little girl that this friend says that he psychically understood, that particularly she loved. And unfortunately, the girl died of tuberculosis and was buried. And he said, I can show you where. And when he took her and showed her uh, where this child was supposed to have been buried, it was the exact place where the ghost in her dream had shown her where the treasure was buried. Now, obviously, many of these stories are things people have said. There's not a lot of evidence that such things really are true, other than the word of the person. But what I find most interesting is the fact that it seems that these ghosts do act in exactly the same way that all the other type of ghosts do in other countries and cultures around the world. And clearly, these ones were good ones. They were benevolent, they helped out on occasion, and they've never particularly done anything bad at all. It's maybe a little bit mischievous, moving things around, but that's about it. So I don't know. Is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? Now, the next story has another haunting in much the same way, but this one is not benevolent. So the person moved into a house and it was a lovely little place. And what they liked, particularly, they had their own room with a lovely study desk, um, and all of the things that a young person um, could absolutely want for uh, their first proper room and such in the house. Their family loved it, and they had their own walk-in bathroom as well. So absolutely great. Now, an idyllic situation for this girl up until, for some reason, um, they thought their sister uh, took to annoying them. Somebody, their sister would come in and poke them in the back while they were trying to sleep. Their shampoo and soaps would disappear from the bathroom, or their towel would disappear uh, while they were trying to take a shower, and they'd find it on the terrace floor outside, um, or their clothes being flung around. But it's, the arguments between sisters, so whatever. They so love to say. However, then it got worse. They woke up to important books missing, test papers that they had finished missing, pages ripped from their notebooks, and then the worst thing of all, of course, um, their diary went missing. And you do not touch girls' diary. Um, and that really upset them. This followed with the window in their room opening on its own, the air conditioning stopping working for no reason, and now they were starting to think, hold on, this isn't right, because there's no way my sister could do anything like this. Somebody is sort of getting at me um, deliberately. So then they came up with a plan. They managed to convince their sister to swap rooms. Um, but it seemed that it wasn't um, the sister that, whatever it was interested in. It followed them uh, into their room. They once woke up to a terrible burning sensation in their leg, but there was nothing there. And eventually they decided, you know what, um, I'm going to have to talk to my mom about this. So she decided, I'm going to do it after school. So they got home, they were waiting for their mom to arrive. Um, and then while they were wandering around, they found their diary tucked at the back of the shelf. Because remember, she swapped rooms with her sister, uh, where her sister had previously put all of her perfumes and makeup items. So she took it out and flipped through it and found that someone else had been using it and writing terribly vulgar things about her. So she talked to her parents about it that evening, and they suddenly said, yes, now that you mention it, we've been losing a number of things. Her mother's wedding necklace went missing, money from her dad's locker went missing, and it got to the point where the mother said that she felt a hand touch her. Now, the mother talked to her sister as well, and it turns out that no, in fact, the sister had also had a number of things happen to her. Weird noises, her alarm clock going off, even though it hadn't been set. So eventually they said, no, this is not right. So they had a priest come over to the house who went round, and according to the priest, there was the strong presence of three spirits that had lived there, and they think that the house belongs to them and not to this family. They like to scare you, and they can be very harmful. So this priest blessed the whole house, gave them holy water, and they said, you must have it in the house at all times so that the bad spirits cannot uh, come in. And every now and then you must clean the house, especially with fresh seawater. Interesting one to keep negativity away. Now, in terms of our addition to what keeps away bad things, remember, salt has absolutely always been a thing, and holy water has always been a thing. So perhaps blessed seawater would be the most powerful thing against any evil or ghost. So keep that one in mind. Add it to our list of connections. But after that, she says, nothing ever happened again. And it seems that the spirits, whatever they were, left after the serious application of priestly intervention. So the story ended well, but it was warned to them that it's quite possible that had they been allowed to persist, it could have gotten very bad indeed. So who's to say? Now, the next story we need to talk about is from somebody who is not Turkish. And I find this one an interesting one because they are a complete foreigner, but who was visiting Turkey. And we're talking about ghosts in Turkey, so it counts. And of course, what I find interesting, it's somebody that would not have the traditional beliefs or anything like that that people in Turkey have. So they arrived at their hotel, and it was lovely, beautiful place. Um, they go to their rooms, and this person went to their bedroom, and there was a little teddy bear on the bed. And I thought, well, not too sure what that's doing there. So they took it out and took it to their mother. Um, and Mom said, shame, some poor little girl must have forgotten to take it um, home with her. But for reasons that they couldn't explain, they somehow felt like someone had left it for them. But nevertheless, they're there on holiday, and the next few days were great. They were spending time with their family and having a wonderful time. But then they were sitting in their bedroom reading a magazine, obviously having a bit of downtime, and they heard a giggle. So they looked to the door to see if anyone's there. Room's empty. They ignored it and kept reading. Then they heard another giggle. So they went to their mother and said, listen, Mom, I can hear somebody in my room. And parents, being parents, just laughed and said, you're imagining things, darling. But she wasn't. So later on, it's time for her to go to bed, but she was scared to even go into the room. So eventually they do, because what else can they do? But left the lights on. And as they fell asleep, they heard the giggle again and woke up immediately, jumped out of the bed, ran to their brother who was sleeping the next door. Shook him awake. He was angry, as brothers always are, and told him about the noise. And he said, look, you're being a silly girl, go to sleep. So, okay, what can you do? Now, for the rest of the holiday, nothing really happened, which pleased them, of course, but they really wanted to know if they were right about there being a little girl. But whatever. So they come back from dinner at the local restaurant the one night. As they arrive back, the hotel manager calls them over, and they were confused as to why they would do that. And he gives her a big smile and says, did you like the teddy bear in your room? So they said, yes, thank you, it was very nice. And he says, over 150 years ago, we had a family of 6 come and spend a weekend at the hotel, and there was a little girl that always carried a little teddy bear, but Sadly, one night something terrible happened, and the girl died of a disease that she caught during the stay. But in her arms was a teddy bear, and they say that you can still hear her speak and even giggle, but she always leaves a teddy bear on the bed. Um, and it is there just to let you know she's around. Now, he thanked the manager, of course, and said, very nice story, and then buggered off to her room very quickly. It was the last night of the holiday, and she was very upset because she didn't really want to go home, but at the same time, she was, yeah, well. So she goes back to her room to go to bed, and the little bear is sitting on the bed. So she thought, well, I'd better be nice to the girl. So she picks it up, gives it a big hug, and says, thank you so much for showing me your bear. He's very cute. Puts the bear down, and she's just tucking herself into bed when she hears a voice saying, you're welcome. I hope I will see you soon, my friend. And giggles, and that was all. And when they left the next day, um, they walked out and took all their bags and all. And as they were going down the stairs, the manager was there, and he smiles at her and says, in the same words as the ghost, I hope to see you again soon, my dear. And yeah, don't know about that one. How creepy does it get? But, well, maybe it was a good thing. I don't know. Um, Modern ones, nevertheless. But what else do we have? We've spoken of a number of cryptids which are quite interesting. Um, some of them are a bit strange. We've spoken of the one that sits on your chest. We've spoken of the one that is like a vampire to drink your blood. We've spoken, of course, as well uh, of several smaller creatures like the Basti. But we also have the Lake Van monster, and basically it is a Loch Ness monster style creature. So it seems that we have them in several places, and in terms of cryptozoology, these ones are absolutely the ones that are memories of prehistoric creatures. Um, we have our version of our vampire here. Make of it as you will. It's very interesting that multiple cultures have vampires. Um, we have ghosts that fit to the style of ghosts everywhere else, and a couple of um, specialized ones. We we have the usual angels and demons and such, just as you would expect, such as the Ifrit, which is a kind of demon from the underworld, and the Melek, which is a angel, so from heaven. The various Peri, which are fairy-like creatures that may be either benevolent or malevolent. Um, and varying gods and things of that variety, which of course is quite interesting. But as we progress along, we can say that the first and most important creature we want to talk about, which I think matters because of its similarity to other places, is the Germakochi, the Turkish Yeti. Now, we find this very interesting that in very, very dry countries, you don't get Bigfoot. But you do in anywhere that's got a bit more moisture to it, and even quite cold places. We've found them in North America, we've found them in Canada, we've found them in Russia, we've found them, of course, in the mountains in Tibet, and in many other places, including, excuse me, including the wetter parts of Africa. But in Turkey, you also get a version of Bigfoot, uh, Germaki, Germakochi, excuse me, is literally meaning man of the mountain. And it's, again, just exactly what Yeti is. It is a curious character that sometimes likes to interact with humans, but to keep it away, you must light a good fire, as apparently they are afraid of, and it can quite harm these creatures. So we have yet again, and all the story and descriptions around it are exactly to what we would call a Bigfoot, and we have yet again discovered them. So make of that as you will. We have various cryptids and things um, to terrify. Um, I don't know what more I can say in that regards. We have covered the deities. There are quite a few in the pre Christian and Islamic religions. Um, they have about 20 or 30 gods of all kinds of varieties, which have therefore affected the belief and culture, as you can probably imagine. Uh, they're also varying spirits that fits to the kinds that you see in many other cultures. Abada, which is the forest spirit. We have them in multiple cultures. You have the Alara, which are water spirits. Um, we, we, we have many of those. Usually they're fairly nasty, but these ones are much nicer, which is a good thing. Um, Unlike, of course, the Basties, which in varying forms are absolutely awful, and apparently belief in them goes back to Sumerian times. You also have Archura, again, a kind of forest spirit, Arboga, which basically is a minotaur, which is quite interesting because we will, when we get to Greece, encounter them yet again. But of course, Turkey and Greece have a long history of dealing with each other. So you also get Ardo. Now, Ardo, excuse me. See, I've got healthy water instead of coffee, so it's not keeping me awake. Um, This is another spirit of water, but instead of being a spirit type spirit, this is a ghost. And they are the spirits of human souls that died of drowning. And like almost every country where you have a similar thing, their interest is in pulling under people or animals under the water to drown them. So, yeah, that's pretty standard for a lot of things in a lot of places. Um, you also get the Asmich, which is a road spirit that will cause disorientation and lead you astray so you get lost. There are quite a lot of other creatures, including the Bichura, which takes on the appearance of a cat, which is kind of like a brownie that lives in houses. And traditionally, every house is supposed to have one, but you're not allowed to speak of them. So there you have it. Cat-shaped creatures that move around and interact. but they have a list that goes on and on and on and on. There are no doubt plenty to consider. We certainly can't go through all of them, but looking at one or two, they also have the Udbir, which is the vampire creature that is very much like the Western version of a vampire. And they have their own version of witches, which we are going to have to get to at some stage. But yes, a good collection of monsters that can be considered to be quite important. So plenty cryptids, plenty of common, excuse me, common cryptids to other countries, which is quite interesting. You start to wonder whether or not, in fact, the mere fact that cultures on the other side of the world describe seeing the same kind of things, it seems to imply that perhaps they do exist and people have seen them, or perhaps they did exist. So who's to say? But ghosts are plenty that all fit along with. And in fact, though we have not touched on them at all because we simply cannot do everything, plenty of UFO stories as well, which we will get to when we finally get to UFOs. But for now, I'm afraid that is all we can do. And next time we will get together again for another country and culture. And absolutely do join me. It's normally, unless life goes crazy, every night at 10 o'clock South African time, which is GMT +2. And you would be very welcome to join. And just remember, our only rule is that you must be polite. That's all we ask. But, yep, with that, we come to the end of our story. And I shall bid you all good night. Keep warm, especially if it's as cold by you as it is by me. And may you have a wonderful evening and sleep deep and sweet. But remember, sleep with one eye open, because you never know. Keep a holy object near at hand, just in case, because sometimes those things that go bump in the night may go bump for you.